Warning: the following video may be classified by self-proclaimed, allegedly unbiased, independent fact-checkers. Proceed at your discretion.
In reality, I mean, when I look back on my last 7 months, which has been the most disturbing and pleasing of my life, um, the one thing I think that bothers me the most is the silence. There are a great many people who never reached out to me, whether publicly or privately, and that disappoints me the most. Um, Friends I've had for 35 years who have been to my restaurant hundreds of times could not even just say, you know what, Jesse, I'm sorry, what happened to you. Um, Regardless of the decision you make, whether I just agree with it or not. I'm sorry that you lost your business and your livelihood for standing up for your opinion and defending freedom.
All right, Jesse, welcome. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to do this with me. I want to kind of set the table here about you and your story and why I sort of reached out to you and requested this time with you, because I think your story is pretty unique in my view. There's not many entrepreneurs who were willing to kind of take the stand that you did. It took a lot of guts to do what you did, and there's
There was
some
not many at all. No.
right, not that I could see. And obviously, there were some real serious consequences to your choices, to the things you decided to do. So, if you can start by just like telling us, who you are, what your business is called, what happened, kind of give us kind of your version of that.
My name is Jesse Johnson. I was born and raised in Calgary, in the neighborhood adjacent to Inglewood, actually, Victoria Park. Inglewood was a playground of mine all throughout my youth, as well as Ramsey and downtown. About 20 years ago, I opened up a restaurant in Inglewood that was called Sugo Cafe Italia. We did farm to table, beautiful Italian food that was, we literally changed the menu every day for 15 plus years. It was a thing of beauty.
Wow.
And about 11 years ago, we opened up Without Papers. Without Papers was a play on the term WAP. Most people think that WAP is an acronym for Without Papers, when in fact it's not. The acronym for Without Papers would be WP, because without is one word. But when we were doing the branding, we were having some difficulty. We were just having difficulty with we were originally going to call it WAP, but we were having some difficulty with the branding, logo design and such. And one day we were in WAP before it was actually opened, waiting for licenses and permits to come. And some food critics were coming to interview us and spread the word. And my business partner was there, my good brother Angelo Contrada, who without whom I would not have been able to do anything I've been doing in the last 7 months. Anyways, he's a chef and a very well-known, very well-respected chef within Calgary. Nobody makes pasta quite like Angelo can. And one of the food writers asked if we were going to be part of the Neapolitan Pizza Association. And God bless my partner's heart, he said, no, we're not going to be part of any organizations. We're going to be Without Papers. And it was at that moment in time that I realized we should call it Without Papers Pizza. Everybody will refer to it as WAP. And yeah, here we are. So we operated that for 11 years. It is in my humble opinion that I was a pillar in my community. And I think my restaurant was an institution in Calgary. We were probably one of the busiest places around per square foot. That place was a beehive and it was absolute beauty. We would do, I realized a long time ago in the food industry, although we've always done exquisite, beautiful food, that people remember the experience more than the food. And Without Papers Pizza was certainly about an experience. A weekend there might range from a burlesque show on Friday night to a pizza magic show teaching 2-year-olds how to make pizza with clowns on Sunday morning. We had every demographic in the land from 0 to 99. And yeah, we stood out against, you can guess, checking papers, and we were destroyed. The livelihoods of 2 families was taken away, and 30 people were also left without a job. And now I fight for freedom. I am what's called a freedom lover, and I will continue to fight until every single vaccine mandate is rescinded and that I am equal with every other Canadian, regardless of my vaccination status. If that means that the only discrimination that exists is that I'm not able to eat a cheeseburger and the vaccinated can, I will continue to fight until we're all completely equal.
Yeah, fair enough. I think that you're not alone in that. It's a lot of people who've been, willing to make that sacrifice. I think as well. They're not playing along, and
I had hoped that somebody would follow my lead. I had theorized that after 1 year and a half of COVID restrictions and absolute destruction of my business, that somebody in the industry who was perhaps close to a financial ruin would decide that he's had enough of the tyranny, or she's had enough of the tyranny, and join me. But after my very public stance, I was publicly vilified by most of the authority in Calgary and a lot of the social media influencers. And most of what I discovered is a very vocal, well, let's say less than fair group of people.
Did you have uh, did you ever have any conversations or any sort of dialogue with other businesses in the area or in Calgary who, did anybody else have sort of a similar thought on all this as you? And maybe they
I
were
honestly think most aligned with my values, to be quite honest with you. Yeah, for fear of retribution and reprisal they saw what happened to me, and everybody stayed quiet. And in reality, I mean, when I look back on my last 7 months, which has been the most disturbing and pleasing of my life, the one thing I think that bothers me the most is the silence. There are a great many people who never reached out to me, whether publicly or privately, and that disappoints me the most. Friends I've had for 35 years who have been to my restaurant hundreds of times could not even just say, you know what, Jesse, I'm sorry, what happened to you, regardless of the decision you make, whether I agree with it or not. I'm sorry that you lost your business and your livelihood for standing up for your opinion and defending freedom.
I think it's wild the way that, there's been obviously this clear division happening, and yet, people just totally abandon everything they know about you. They, have ever known about you. People who, were your friend or your family or whatever in the past. And it's like a lot of them just feel like they can't even try to reconnect in some way. It's
Vax passport is, in my opinion, the most heinous crime ever enforced upon a Canadian, and I say that without hyperbole. It has literally divided a nation, pitted family against family, peer against peer, and friend against friend. It is pure evil. It required people to come out with their private decisions in order to be publicly vilified and vilified from society and segregated. It's ludicrous to me that most people don't recognize it as such.
Mm-hmm. It's not like anything that's ever been
before that Vax passport. Our suffering was equal under the oppression. Now some suffer wholly and others suffer not, and the ones that suffer not also suffer, but don't quite realize that, I believe.
Well, I just want to sort of put down a little bit of a timeline, some things that I've noted here, and have you sort of guide me through this. Actually, before I even start this with you, the first story I ever heard of a restaurant really defying any of the government's orders was all the way back in November 2020 when Adam Skelly out in Ontario, he defied lockdown orders there. He'd opened this restaurant, Adamson Barbecue, for dine-in, and there was very serious consequences to that. He got arrested. They shut down his restaurant. They even broke into the restaurant when he wasn't there to lock him out. They had what seemed like an obscene amount of police presence there. You must have seen that happen when it was happening out there. So my question to you is, given what happened there, were you at all concerned, with the authorities kind of coming down hard on you and making an example of you, and what, sort of drove you to challenge that proof of vaccination expectation that was kind of being put on you?
During the last 2 years, or the year and a half, I guess, when we first made our stance against the Vax passport, I saw a lot of things happen, and I learned that it's impossible to apologize in this society and culture that we live in, that you had to make a statement. And to be quite honest with you, when I made that statement, I thought it was so blatantly obvious as to the discrimination and segregation that would occur because of this, that everybody would everybody would follow suit. But yeah, there is a very distinct culture of fear that exists, and it permeates all throughout society, in my opinion.
So when you did this, you didn't think it would ever get this far. You kind of were hopeful that, everybody would sort of band together and not stand for this. And
I honestly thought that, I was going to receive some flack. I was willing to accept it. Did I think that it would come to this? No, I didn't. But it has, and
it shouldn't have come to this. It shouldn't.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, there's a great many people who think me a fool for doing what I did. And I believe in it so wholeheartedly that there was a time that I did actually consider that maybe I am a fool. That was 7 months ago after this happened to me, and I lost something that meant a great deal to me and a great deal to many, many other people. And it caused me to fall into a state of depression and to perhaps doubt I don't think doubt my values, but doubt whether, I could have skirted the issue by doing other things that a great many other restaurants did, such as just ignoring the rules and letting people in and not speaking your voice.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. You know what?
Not able to, when you came to that restaurant on the weekend and many times throughout the week, you at the top of the stairs was me. And there was no way I was going to refuse anybody for being anything else than the same as me. It was impossible. Absolutely impossible.
So, I'm going to build this timeline out here. So September 20th, 2021, there's the restrictions exemption program. This is, Alberta's fancy term for the proof of vaccination program. And so, when you heard of this, what was going on in your mind when you heard they were going to require this? Did you ever
it went into my mind because there was no end date to it, that this was going to be the situation forever. And the next step was for me to become vaccinated in order to own my business.
Right. That's fair. See, and that's the thing. A lot of people aren't looking ahead. When this is your current present, what's coming next? Nobody seems to look very far ahead. They just look in the now. And you obviously, especially as a business owner, but really everybody as a Canadian, you have to look ahead to what we're doing now. I lost
that restaurant on September 20th, but I in fact did not lose that restaurant on September 20th. I lost it on March 16th, 2020. That was the first day of the government imposed lockdowns. That was the day that what I had created, the beauty that existed, stopped existing. And I was no longer able and free to run my business the way that I saw fit.
Right.
And it was no longer succeeding because of my acumen and became dependent upon government handouts in order to exist. That was the day I lost my restaurant. And every day subsequent to that, I lost it a little bit more with each and every atrocity that was implemented. Our industry was singled out. I think one reason only. You like to ski, she likes to golf, this guy likes to wrestle, that guy likes to read books, and this guy likes to play chess. But there's one thing that we all do together, and that's eat. And I think that's why they targeted it myself, to be honest with you.
Had you ever considered not opting into the program and just being open for takeout?
Well, my business partner definitely wanted that, and that was the more rational decision, yes. But yeah, we chose not to go that way, and I'm not sure why it is that we chose not to go that way, but we did. My friend likes to say that we went out like the last 7 seconds of Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, just guns a-blazing, like we're not going to take it,
Because obviously that's what a lot of other restaurants did. They kind of wanted to defy this in a more quiet way. They did not have the bravery that you did. Obviously, you took an obvious stand.
Here's the quiet defiance is not my way.
Yeah, fair enough. And you know what? I think the quiet defiance is not as powerful, right? If all those restaurants had done what you did it together.
It truly shocked me that not a single one followed my lead. It truly shocked me. It really did. Yeah.
It's hard to believe. Yeah. It's I do believe, as far as I know, you're the only one who did in Calgary.
Yeah. I as far as I understand, and somebody brought up another place that I hadn't heard about, but I'm pretty sure that we were the only restaurant that was destroyed. Others suffered and were treated poorly, but yeah, we were destroyed, absolutely destroyed. That business blew up. We shut down on Saturday, and by Wednesday, I was broke.
So now I have October 7th. This just going by articles I've read. October 7th, I have in 2021, the city of Calgary suspended without papers pizza. So do you remember that? What happened on that day? Were there any communications or warnings from the city leading up to that? Or did they just kind of show up and like, how did that kind of go down?
I mean, we had anticipated it, and when it went down, I stopped selling and gave away pizzas. And it just so happened that people did donate as well, and God bless all those people who did. But yeah, by that point, it was already too late.
Yeah, I was gonna actually ask that next about the free pizza day. So October 8th, I've got free pizza day. So yeah, tell me a little bit about that. What was your what was your motivation behind that? And did that add to punishment, or was there any additional
I
consequence
honestly
to
thought
that?
that by doing that, I wouldn't have suffered the consequences that I did. I thought that in a way that was an appeasement, but obviously it wasn't viewed the same by the city of Calgary and AHS and various other authorita. Um, uh, yeah, we gave away free pizza. The police came and confiscated our picnic tables,
Wow.
and yeah, took them away, our picnic tables on the street. And then the next day actually that day we put out milk crates to replace the picnic table. And the next day the police came and confiscated our milk crates.
Wow. So you did you have a pretty good turnout for that? Like when I saw the free pizza, announcement, I thought like, my God, like these guys know what's up. Like they are not quitting. I was just like loving everything that I was seeing on this. So, obviously that was, a defiance to these guys trying to kind of control you. And so, I thought that was great. So you must have had a pretty good turnout from that, I imagine, offering up free pizza to people, to anybody who wanted.
You know what? I mean, yeah, the turnout was great. We would normally have a better turnout just being open,
Sure.
but there was a great many people who came in those first days who are now friends of mine, and yeah, it was quite beautiful. To be quite honest with you, it was one of the most beautiful, heartwarming things I've ever experienced. And yeah, it's unfortunate that that was backed up by so much hate and pain.
And then the next day is when October 9th is when I have as the day that you were officially shut down. How did that go down? Is this a permanent shutdown? Is there any way to challenge this? What can you kind
I
of
was a
tell us
bit
about
naive
that?
that day, to be honest with you. We were expecting the police to come at some point. I was sleeping in the restaurant for the previous week. Um, and that was the Saturday of a long weekend, and we should have thought that that would have been the day that they did it. To be honest with you, I was holed up the whole day with friends, and we were giving away pizzas. And by that point, a lot of the staff that we had, um, there was so much pressure that we would just lose staff every day who,
Right.
started to receive hate, or a family member said you can't be there anymore, or whatever the case was. And um, yeah, I lost my train of thought, but oh yeah, sorry. So we were there that day, and there was a freedom rally taking place, and I honestly thought that everything just happened really quick to me in my mind, and I had honestly thought that there was going to be a great many people outside to support the stance that we have taken, and the risk that we had perhaps foolishly accepted. But not many people came, and I realized at that point in time something sank in my heart, and I had to leave the restaurant. And they actually came and closed it when I wasn't there. My business partner was there, which I look back on now and think, you know, I consider myself a bit crafty and thought that I should have been there at that time, but I think subconsciously I wouldn't have been able to handle it. So I'm glad I wasn't there. But yeah, they destroyed what was a thing of beauty that only professed love and beauty. The acceptance is all is equal, and the retribution I receive for that statement still to this day perplexes me.
Right. Now, move forward a little bit to December of 2021. This is when things started to, this Omicron surge, as they would have you believe, happened, and a lot of Canada started shutting down restaurants, bars.
What's the time frame you said again? Sorry.
I'm sorry.
What was the time frame you said for the Omicron?
December of 2021. Right around Christmas time, they started shutting down across Canada. It didn't really happen here in Alberta, but in most of Canada, they were starting to shut down a lot of restaurants, a lot of bars, gyms, some sporting events and venues. And these were all, places where only the vaccinated could attend. And so while you have had to pay this heavy price for standing up for what's right, and you're seeing all these businesses across Canada were being shut down, and they did what the government science told them to do, and the only customers they were allowed to have were vaccinated, and it didn't stop the spread or make any difference. As you're seeing that happen, do you sort of feel a sense of validation for the choices you made, the assessments you made on the science? Like, what's going through your mind as you're seeing that all these other guys that they're supposedly the good guys doing what they're told, it didn't matter. It didn't matter. They wound up getting shut down. What was kind of going through your mind through all that?
By that point, I was already so deep into the rabbit hole that honestly, there wasn't really much going through my mind. I I had realized by that point that by that time that those who believe another narrative simply refuse to even acknowledge the existence of any common sense or data, and yeah, at that point I realized that. Well, at that point I realized that man, we got a really big fight ahead of us. Yeah,
It
I
does
don't
seem
even know.
like nothing makes sense, right?
What's that?
It does seem like, just like you said, like nothing makes sense. People are believing things that don't make sense, that are not believable.
I've thought that since the very beginning. Yes, yeah, that we believed a lot of things that perhaps didn't make sense. Yeah.
Like in Quebec, around the same time period, they were starting to, after they had fired a whole bunch of unvaccinated nurses, they were starting to have regulations where vaccinated nurses who had tested positive for COVID were being asked to continue to work and
Remember
take
how
care.
ridiculous it was? There was a time when one of my employees contacted COVID, however, tested, had the sniffles and tested, had COVID. We had to close for 3 days, and then it went from that to just come to work.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous. Absolutely.
No,
ridiculous.
no consistency. Nothing makes sense. So, and then I kind of moving forward a little bit more in February, on the 8th of 2022 here, the proof of vaccination program ends here in Alberta for restaurants. So now everyone's opening up and doing
People think
the
it
thing
ended
you were trying to do.
the science made it end. It had nothing to do with the truckers or what happened.
Right.
And the rising up of literally millions of Canadians against the tyrannical oppression that they felt. It was all because of science. And I argued to them what science it is that you're referring to. The only science I see is political science.
100%. They're just doing whatever they think is going to help them out in the polls and things like that. So now in February, that's where we're at. In March, March the 10th, I heard, AHS has dropped mandatory vaccination for its own employees. So this is, Alberta Health Services, who's kind of really in charge of making these policies, really, and all these wild ideas that they have. So, as we fast forward to now, the very rules that you refused to adhere to and cost your business don't even apply anymore.
That's right. Pure hypocrisy is what it is.
Every restaurant
was destroyed over a bylaw. A parking ticket destroyed me. It is the most lunacy I've ever experienced in all my life. All my life, a parking ticket took down an institution in Calgary that only stood up for all. Yeah, there's many things that have occurred that I truly think that I'll never be able to comprehend or get over, to be honest with you.
Well, it seems to me that all the things that they tried to force you to do, that they refused to do, that you refused to do out of principle, never accomplished anything. And now, such a short while later, hasn't been
Nothing.
that long, it's like the politicians and public health are basically admitting that they were wrong. They're not saying it outright, but their actions are that they failed, that there's no justification for how they treated you. And
None whatsoever.
it seems to me that you're owed an apology. Like, you must certainly
Seems to me that
should
I'm
have
much more than an apology, to be quite honest
100%.
with you. But we
You,
could start with an apology, yes.
yeah. And you should have the right to open up Without Papers Pizza again. Now,
Have the right to
given the current
but I
rules,
should have the right to. I stood up for all, and no one stood up for me. But in fact, it would seem that what I professed was in fact true love and the right thing to do.
is there a legal challenge you can pursue or are pursuing given the way things have played out? Because obviously, they came down hard on you. Obviously, they
I
shut
think
you
at this
down.
point in time, there's no legal challenge for me whatsoever. I'm literally trying to fight traffic tickets. Yeah, until the narrative is completely reversed and the politicians who enforced the most discriminatory divided policy, that's a divisive policy that's ever been enacted upon Canada, admits to their wrongdoing. But, I don't hold my breath on that.
Yeah, it just seems to me that, let's pretend that they were actually right in doing what they did to you, which they weren't. But for argument's sake, even if they were, at this point in time, every restaurant, everybody in your industry is allowed to do the thing that you were trying to do. It makes no sense to me. I don't understand how nobody's contacted you and, tried to correct this, or at least at this point. I mean, I think you should be compensated for all the time and all the business you lost over that time, because clearly what they did didn't work. But at the very least, you should be able to have Without Papers Pizza open now while everybody else is being allowed to do the exact thing that you were doing.
Well, yes, if the world was fair, I would agree with you, yes.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I've learned that the world is not fair whatsoever. It actually quite still astonishes me how many people think that I should just accept what happened to me as my wrongdoing and not extreme overreach by the government itself. It truly astounds me. It really does.
Yeah, well, definitely don't agree with those people. I wish that you didn't have such a hard road doing the things you're doing, but you did the right thing. And, with all the things you've had to suffer, everything I think happens for a reason. And it may not be fair that it's happening to you, but you're the one who was brave enough to do it. And there's a reason for that. And I think that you will be looked back kindly on your actions and the things you did. Unfortunately, at this time, you're suffering the consequences of that. But I think that there are a lot of people.
Honestly, obviously, say that what I went through is the most ghoulish, dark, depressing, anxiety-filled moment or period of time of my entire life, and I would not wish it upon anyone. But after looking back on it now, I wouldn't trade it. I think what's happened to me is truly a beautiful thing. It opened my eyes and made me realize what reality is and what true love is. And the experiences I've had over the last 7 months have been incredible, just beautiful, from the highest of highs to the lowest of lows, but to experience all of them. And the greatest thing that's happened to me in the last 7 months is the complete removal of shame. There's nothing that you can say to me anymore that I find detrimental. Yeah, once you have been set free from shame, you're truly, truly free to speak your voice as you think you want it to be heard.
100% agree with that. And it's one of those things. You can tell who cares what other people think and who doesn't, and it's not an easy thing. Clearly, obviously, I didn't know how hard of a thing this was for people, but thinking with your own mind and not being influenced by how people are going to be offended and things like that, it's not that common. If you can, I don't know if you're okay to talk about this or not, but can you tell me a little bit about POW pizza? Can we talk about that?
Oh, of course we can. Yeah.
Okay, so when and how did that get started?
I find it quite ironic, actually, and people think that I made these names up after our stance was made public, but we did not. Without Papers was named 11 years ago, and POW Pizza, we opened up our first location in Renfrew. I'm trying to remember the year. I think it was 2018, I believe. So it's been open for a few years. We opened up a second location in Brentwood. And after Without Papers Pizza was destroyed for freedom, our fallback pizza was POW Pizza. There's a lot of times where I think that Providence was a bit at play in what happened to me. But anyways, POW Pizza is a Detroit style pizza place. Pan cooked in square Detroit blue steel dishes that were originally from the auto bodies, the factories in Detroit. And the story or the lore goes that somebody took one home one night. These were basically just trays that people used to keep their nuts and bolts and tools or whatever it was that they needed to keep them. Somebody took one home one night, and his wife made a pizza, and Detroit style pizza was born. And yeah, so we started that just a few years ago, I'd always wanted to do a takeout pizza place, but I didn't want to do Neapolitan thin crust style. We
Sure.
wanted to do a thick crust because, in my opinion, if 100 pizzas are sold in Calgary, 70 of them are a thick crust, or maybe even more. And so we wanted to see if we could maybe capitalize and tap into that market a little bit. And we named it POW because it was the exact opposite of WAP, and it was as thick as you get. And yeah, during the apocalypse, and I refer to what's happened over the last 2 years as the apocalypse, but business was booming for it. But after we made our stance public Without Papers, we were vilified by the majority of the media that the majority of Calgarians read. And those businesses are suffering right now, to be quite honest with you, even though I think that we do a beautiful product. The model is takeout only. That's how we were able to continue operating without enforcing discrimination.
Right.
But they should be doing better than they are, unfortunately.
So you think that the connection of Without Papers to POW, you think has had a negative influence on your business there because of media and politicians and what have you?
Yeah, most certainly. There was quite a few social media influencers, food critics who were my friends just 7 months ago. Cookie Monsters and the such, who told everybody not to come to POW Pizza, that we stand for the wrong values, and that you shouldn't support us. But yeah, I think, to be quite honest with you, I don't think we've done a very good job at letting people know that is our other pizza place.
Right. Okay.
And we should work on that a little bit more. I was a bit worried at the beginning, and my business partner was as well, that we should try to keep the separation, but I realized that it was impossible to keep the separation. And yeah.
I think you're right. I think plus, especially, there seems to be kind of a one mind versus the other kind of a dynamic happening in society. And
a lot of people are worried about ordering it out of fear that their neighbor is going to see the box in their garbage and associate them with being freedom lovers, and spew the vitriol upon them. I honestly think that there's still a very omnipresent culture of hate that exists, and most people are just afraid to speak their opinion publicly.
Yeah.
And I tell them, if you're afraid to express your opinion and to speak your voice, you live under tyranny, clear and simple. Wake up.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot of freedom loving people out there who would want to know that you have this other brand, and that this is who's running, and this is what their values are, and they would I think for those who know without
My business
papers and
partner,
don't know
Angelo
how.
Contrada, who's running those places now, and food oozes from his actual soul. He was brought up to understand food in a manner that most people do not, and the product that we put out of that pizza place is exceptional. Different, perhaps some people aren't appreciative of the style, but it is very accurate to the style and a good representation of it. And yeah, it's good, beautiful pizza, and people who support freedom and want to see me
Should go
continue
there.
should buy some Pal Pizza.
So how do you see this moving forward, Jesse? Restrictions are easing across Canada, although probably not quickly enough. Is this government really backing away? Are we going back to normal, or do you sort of see more of like a parallel economy situation forming? What do you kind of see happening?
Uh, I don't know. I have such distrust in government now that I honestly don't know. I wonder why people even vote. Just this week, the Liberals joined forces with the NDP. I mean, could you have more diametrically opposed ideologies? And yet there they are aligned. The hell did you even vote for? Um, yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. It really, really astounds me that, really essentially what we're all fighting for is just to be equal. That's it,
Yeah,
just to be equal. None of us should have to suffer reprisals for our decisions.
no.
And it really shocks me that most Canadians, or not most Canadians, but a great many Canadians think that we should. And yeah, I don't, it mystifies me how this government won't rescind those. It really does. They make no sense whatsoever, but yet they still hold on to it. It's
And they
crazy.
can't apologize too. That's the for me, one of the toughest things is, I can understand nobody's perfect, nobody gets everything right, but they've been getting a lot wrong. They can never admit when they're wrong. It's always just, don't worry, keep following what we're telling you to do. This is the way out. We have everything under control, which clearly they don't. It would be nice if people could be a little bit more real, that maybe there's more than one way to handle this, and maybe the people that we've been kind of hating on all this time, they weren't quite as dumb or as wrong about everything as we thought. I mean, it would be nice just to even hear something like that, and they just can't. It's always double down, triple down.
Like a
That's the
degenerate
reality.
blackjack player, a degenerate gambler playing blackjack, doubling down on 16 against an ace on their last bet of the
Right.
night. It's appalling, really. It's appalling, and not a single one of them will admit any wrongdoing or fault whatsoever and take any responsibility. It is the most disgusting illustration of politics that this country has ever seen. Yeah, blows my mind.
So where can people find you? Where can people support you, find and follow the things that
Find me
you're doing?
supporting on the streets because I devote my life now to protest. And that's what I do every single day. Civil disobedience until this tyranny is removed and we can all exist as free Canadians, equal and loving to each and every one.
And you're in BC at the moment. Do you kind of move back and forth
I move
between the
back
two
and forth.
provinces?
Yeah, I have a location out here for Pow Pizza, pizza truck, and an outdoor deck that's seasonal. And um, yeah, so we're close to starting up here, and I kind of use this as my hub and travel around to wherever I think best suited to protest for freedom. Last night we were in Cranbrook.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent quite a bit of time in the Coots border. I go to Calgary every weekend for the rallies that are taking place, and let's speak about that for a moment because I truly think that last Saturday was the darkest moment in the history of Alberta. Peaceful protest was taken away from thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people, perhaps. Well, who knows how many people? A lot of people, I think, much more than the narrative tells you. And it was applauded in Calgary. applauded that their freedoms be taken away because these people have the audacity to demand that they be equal. Yeah, the tyranny and yeah, it's really, really, really disturbing what's happening in Calgary right now. It truly is. And tomorrow, Saturday, and to be quite honest with you, I have a bit of angst about going there. I'm constantly worried about I'm constantly worried about a lot of things, and there's just a lot of emotion right now. A friend of mine, Devlin, was arrested on Saturday for essentially not backing out of a park quick enough, and he stood up for his rights, which everybody thinks was wrong, but I believe that those rights were entitled to him. Perhaps Canadians might think the brashness of him having the audacity to stand up for his rights was wrong, but he does have the right. And yeah, these things happen just as they always happen, which I've learned over the last little bit is an accident. He's getting pushed back, you trip, somebody grabs you, this is misinterpreted, and a kid who's 25 years old, his whole life in front of him, who's literally probably never been in a fight in his entire life. The only thing he's fought for is freedom, is now up against police or assaulting a police officer and whatever other charges he has against him, charges that could affect the rest of his life. And literally all this kid was doing was the police officer's job, in my opinion.
So sorry, I don't know. I'm not familiar with that story. That happened recently. What did he?
Yeah, did you not see anything that went on in Calgary on the weekend?
It did not.
No, of course not. I mean, it's amazing the censorship that exists. Even you yourself, who was a seeker of truth, was prevented from seeing it. Yeah, it was. So, do you not know any of the story? Is that it, or?
Correct.
No,
Yeah,
not.
I'm
Okay.
not familiar with the story.
Okay, well, there's been rallies taking place in Calgary for 2 years since
Right.
this COVID mandates and enforcement and tyranny started taking place. They've slowly grown over the years, and I started joining the rallies as soon as I made my stance public, and they've grown to mammoth proportions. There's been thousands of people marching down the streets to demand equality and freedom, and there's been a political faction in Calgary led by the NDP and quite a few other political figures, the mayor as well, John Carlo Courage, OCC, who, in my opinion, set up a counter narrative to oppose our peaceful protest because it goes against their narrative of 100% vaccination. And they started to prevent us from going on our peaceful march. The first time they did it, they met us on 17th Avenue. The second weekend, they met us on 17th Avenue again, except there was about 30 of them behind a wall of police, and they literally prevented us from going up 17th Avenue. That delayed for about an hour, caused a massive disruption, and because of that, our freedom to protest peacefully was taken away. We weren't allowed to gather in the park that they had been gathering for 2 years. All sorts of amplification were outlawed. You were no longer allowed to march on the street. You were no longer allowed to gather in a public space and fight for freedom. So the right to peaceful protest was taken away from Albertans on that day, and I hope it's not always the case.
All right. Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
yeah. The police there. I mean, there was the horses. It was very reminiscent of Ottawa, to be quite honest with you.
So there was this, just so I can be clear on this, was a small group of counter protesters and a wall of police
protesters, I refer to them as. The ironic thing is that I would frequently, every time they're there, I go up to them and ask them, why are you here? What is it that you support and what is it that you protest? And there's nothing, silence out of them.
They don't
and
even want to talk.
Remind them that, listen, if you're coming to a protest, the whole point is to express your opinion and speak your voice. Right. You staying silent is, you could just stay home and stay silent. Sure. Why are you out here? You're literally seeking conflict with us. And this Saturday, there was we vacated the park that we were at and went to City Hall, where we are still allowed to have peaceful protest. By the time we gathered there was hundreds of cops in the area, and the Beltline solidarity movement, which has very distinct alliances to movements that I think most people wouldn't align with had they known their true values, came over to City Hall to meet us. And I thought, well, why are you here? You know, if the
Mhm.
whole point of your protesting was for us to leave there, we left there and came here. Why are you now here? You are the one seeking
So
conflict,
they're just
not us.
following you.
And the whole movement has always been peace. There's never been
Yep.
anything violent that's erupted from it. I shouldn't say that. There's been altercations that have occurred because of various other factors. But yeah, it was a very dark moment, and I think tomorrow will be a very interesting day in Calgary.
Right.
Very interesting day.
I'll certainly keep my eyes open on that and see what
Yeah,
happens now
well,
that you've kind of turned me on to it. So, okay. And where can people follow? Like, are you on any social media? Is there any way to kind of
oh my
follow what
God,
you're
we're
doing?
on every platform. I mean, how many are there? We're on Telegram as Without Papers Pizza. We're on Facebook as Without Papers Pizza. I'm on Facebook as Jesse Johnson. We're on Instagram as WOP Pizza, WOP Pizza. We're on Twitter as WOP, so WO Pizza. We're on TikTok as WO Pizza, and we're on the street as myself.
All right, perfect. So everybody should take a look and watch your stuff and see all the things you're fighting for. I appreciate everything.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me. I've
Yeah.
not done very many interviews. I'm not sure why it was that you reached out to me and I reached out to you, but it was an absolute pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate everything you've been doing. You did, honestly, you did something nobody had the guts to do, and I recognize that, and I appreciate it, and I know it's felt thankless for you, but it's not. People do appreciate it, even if they're not telling you, and I think that we need more of that. So thank you for standing up and showing the leadership in a moment where it's necessary, and I know it's not happening fast enough, but I hope it does catch on, and I hope it spreads. And
Freedom
I
always
appreciate,
catches on, brother.
yeah,
Always. And I appreciate the opportunity for you that you've given me to speak my voice. I thank you very much for that.
awesome. Thank you, Jesse. We'll talk again.
Ciao, brother.
All right.
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed that and want to see more, hit the like button and feel free to leave a comment and tell me what you think. This content can be found on BitChute, Gab, Brighteon, Telegram, Rumble, Parler, Odyssey, and the Highwire. So please follow, subscribe, and turn post notifications on so you can know when the next post drops. Thanks, and see you soon.